So what does it mean to be unreasonably hospitable? The first starts with connection. Then the second piece of unreasonable hospitality is really generosity. Then the third piece, I would say this is like the big moneymaker here, is welcome to Badass Softie, a podcast for leaders who are unapologetically ambitious and want to lead with heart because you're allowed to chase big goals without losing what makes you human. I'm your host, Dr. JJ Peterson, and one of the things that you should know about me is I am a foodie. I mean, there are probably a lot of things that are good to know about me, but reality is if you want to know my heart, you should know I am a good foodie. Like when we go on vacation, I am building that itinerary around where we're eating, where we're going to sit down for lunch, where we're going to sit down for dinner. The snacks when you go to Disneyland really are what it's all about, not the rides for me. It's like, what are the special snacks? Because I grew up in a home where one of the ways that my dad would celebrate us is by putting a lot of effort into making our favorite meal. And for me, that was ribs. My dad was an incredible barbecuer, griller. And when ribs came out, you knew that it was a special occasion because one, my dad knew that I loved them. And two, I knew that it took him all day. It took a lot of effort in order for him to actually make those. And that's how I grew up. And that's even to this day, when I go out to eat and people put in effort to make something just a little bit more special in the way that they prepare their food or the way they treat you, you will have my heart forever. I'll just tell you that right now. And the reason I say that is because we are now in the third episode in this series of, the frameworks that really shaped me and have shaped who I am in my business life. And the one I want to talk about today is Unreasonable Hospitality from Will Guidara. If there's anything you know about Will, you know that he was the owner of what became the number one restaurant in the world, 11 Madison Park. Now, when he got there, it was kind of a struggling restaurant that was very high end. They delivered incredible amounts of great service. The food was top notch, one of the best chefs in the world. However, they weren't number one. The way they became number one is by focusing on the customer experience and what he would call unreasonable hospitality. Now, he put down that experience and that philosophy in a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And I would say that book, other than building a story brand, that book has made the biggest impact on my growth in business and as a leader. Because what he talks about in there is a difference between service and hospitality. So let me ask you this. How many times have you gone to a restaurant or walked into a hotel and it's been good? It's been fine. Like you've enjoyed the food. The people were kind to you. You got in and out quickly. That is good service. But most often that is the bare minimum, right? Because you also experience that. So often these days, I encounter businesses who are not willing to go above and beyond. That is a very rare thing these days. So when somebody does that, when somebody goes above and beyond for you, you remember. Not only do you remember and want to go back and experience that again, but you talk about it. Other people start to go there. People want to work in an environment where they're given permission to go above and beyond, to care for customers in a way that goes beyond mere service and hospitality. The way Will describes it is that service is really black and white and hospitality is color. We all want to live in a world and do business in a world that is filled with more vibrant and amazing and breathtaking color. There is beauty in color. Black and white is efficient. It's good. It's not bad. Service is efficient. It's good. It's not bad. Hospitality, Now you're leaning into a differentiation, and that is your competitive edge in the market. Now, I mentioned, that I love food, and so I was always looking for a restaurant in my neighborhood, wherever I lived. I was always looking for a restaurant in my neighborhood that I could enjoy the food, also love the service, but really it kind of became like my place, right? I always am looking for I want Cheers. I want the bar where everybody knows your name kind of thing. Well, a restaurant opened in my neighborhood recently called NoCo. When we walked in the door, we were welcomed with a smile. They were very kind. They started talking to us a little bit, but not too much. You know how that is. Like they weren't being over. They were just being kind and welcoming. Sit down. We order our first dish because it's shared plates. So we get our first tapas basically. And it's unreal. We've never tasted anything like this. Then the next dish comes out. Again, unreal. We never tasted anything like this. It kind of starts blowing our mind. Well, each person that then came by and filled our water or dropped off a dish or checked to see how we were doing was so kind and so thoughtful and so engaging in a way that made us start to feel like this could be home. Well, eventually the owner came by and he's talking to us and he's asking questions. And because I had worked with Will, I actually asked the question, have you ever read the book Unreasonable Hospitality? And he said, yeah, we've built our business on this. And we start talking right there about their philosophy. One of the things, not only do they treat their customers incredibly well, but they treat their staff incredibly well. They're unbelievable. I started falling in love with this place at a whole new level. The food was good, but now that I understood the intentionality and the work that they put behind being welcoming, bringing color to the meal instead of just allowing it to be black and white, I was all in. So we're sitting there, and yes, maybe I had at this point 2 old fashions, which were also amazing. But the owner asks us, are you guys having dessert? And we said, oh yeah, we're going to Jenny's for dessert. Well, 2 minutes later, all of a sudden, this giant cake comes by and he drops at our table and he goes, well, now you're going to have 2. A few days later, we get a delivery at our door that was actually off of our wedding registry, which we had not published. We were getting ready to be married, but we had not sent out our wedding registry to anybody. And we got these electronic salt and pepper shakers. And we're sitting there trying to figure out who they were from because it didn't say on our registry. Eventually found out that the owner of NoCo had overheard us talking about our wedding registry, went to the site without us telling him where it was, and purchased a gift off of it and said, welcome, welcome. That's unreasonable hospitality. That is unreasonable hospitality. And we now we have a standing reservation every month that we go at least once a month to this restaurant. And then on top of that, we've told every single one of our friends about it. So they go to this restaurant. And on top of that, sometimes we just come in at 5:00 when they open to see if there's an open table so we can sit down for a few hours and enjoy an amazing dinner and amazing hospitality. That's what I'm talking about. The advantage of unreasonable hospitality can be. It is an opportunity not only to be kind and care for people in a really powerful way, but it is an incredible differentiator in the market. It is your competitive advantage because now we tell everybody. Now I'm talking about it on a podcast. Go to NoCo. When people, customers in particular, feel seen, valued, and understood, you create raving fans. Obviously, what NoCo did was incredible, but that's a lot. They gave me a free dessert and they went to our website and they bought us something and they shipped it to us. There are these big and grand gestures that a lot of people look at when they think about unreasonable hospitality. Like, how do I find out that one of my customers, their anniversary is coming up. Let's send them on a cruise, right? Now that's going to create a huge story. Everybody's going to talk about it. Yes, blah, blah, blah. However, we can't do that for everybody. So what Will really talks about of what does it mean to be unreasonably hospitable, what he's talking about is really understanding 3 things. The first is unreasonable hospitality starts with connection. We have to actually see, hear, and understand our customers. Identify where are those touch points that we are coming in contact with our customers pre-sale, during sale, and delivery of the experience, and even post. What are those moments that we are in connection in the same space with our customers, and identify them? When we identify those, we begin to understand the connection we have with them, because we may have connection with them in places we haven't even thought about. In fact, I can guarantee that you have connection with your customers in places that your competitors haven't thought about. Where are the areas where you have connection pre-sale, during sale, and post-sale with your customer? So the first piece of unreasonable hospitality is connection, a genuine connection with people, and understand what they're feeling at each of the moments in their customer journey, pre, middle, and the end. Then the second piece of unreasonable hospitality is really generosity. How can we approach these moments with a spirit of generosity versus a spirit of control or fear? Even the hard moments, right? We know how to be generous in the happy moments, like the idea of, I can when we're talking about desserts, I can drop a good dessert, and that is elevating a happy moment. Dessert is a real happy moment for me. We can elevate that. But the other part is, how do we elevate those moments that are not so happy, and how do we be generous in those? Now, here's where people get stuck a lot when it comes to this framework and unreasonable hospitality is, again, you think, I've just got to give away a bunch of free stuff. No, that's not what this is about. That may be something where you offer something free, but the reality is it may be just a moment of acknowledgement. It may be the way that you drop something. It may be the way that you smile or speak about the check. Then the third piece really of unreasonable hospitality, and this is, I would say this is like the big moneymaker here, is systematize. How do you systematize your hospitality? Because trying to figure out how to treat every single customer that you experience differently and uniquely and spend a lot of money on them is not realistic. You can't do that. However, if you can identify those moments that are repeatable with every single one of the customers, you have an opportunity to systematize that hospitality. Let me give you an example of this. In a restaurant, one of the things I've been talking about is the moment that the check comes to the table. That happens in every single restaurant in America. That should not be a surprise to the server or to the customer. It is going to happen. So it is a repeatable moment. The research shows that the simple act of putting some candy on that check when it is delivered will result in a higher tip for the server. You've been in restaurants where you get a mint, or you get a little piece of candy, or you get a fortune cookie at the end of the meal. That is a moment of hospitality, because it's not just delivering the check. It's actually delivering something that is a nice little treat at the end of the meal in that moment when you're having to pay that bill. And the research shows that actually that increases the amount of tip that servers receive. That's incredible. And how much do those little mints cost? So what I'm talking about here is not going kind of like these big grandiose gestures, but delivering a mint with the check actually makes your customer happier, and it makes your employees happier because they get paid more. This is the tiny kind of thing that you need to think about of, how do I systematize the hospitality for those moments of connection with our customers, right? Let's say you are a dental office. Well, at a dental office, when you walk in, nobody is super excited about being at the dentist. I was as a child, because I loved that I never got cavities, which I didn't until I was older. So I loved going to the dentist because they were always like patting me on the head and going, "You're amazing." And then later when I started getting cavities, I hated the dentist. Nobody, when they walk into a dentist office, is excited to be there unless you're getting rid of pain, but you're not. How can, in that moment, that is a negative connection with your customer, they're walking in the door, how can you be generous in that moment And how can you systematize that interaction so whoever's at the front desk doesn't have to think about, what do I need to do in order to make this person feel welcome? Pause, and as a team, develop a system that the person at the front desk can do immediately upon somebody walking in the office. Is it the way that they're greeted? Is it a sample that they're giving them? Is it just the fact that I know the person's name when they walk in that door? If I walk into that office and they already know my name, they already have my paperwork pulled up, holy cow. I'm going to love going to that office because of the way I was just treated in that moment. And that costs the business nothing. When you begin implementing unreasonable hospitality into your business by identifying those connection points and being generous in those, and then systematizing it so that your team doesn't actually have to think about it, you'll blow the minds of your customers, your employees will love it, and it just makes you feel really, really good. Can you see why I love it? Can you see why this is one of the 3 frameworks that really has shaped my life? I started this series with the idea of Hero on a Mission, which is really about living a great story. Then I talked about Story Brand, which is really about telling a good story for your company, or really, more importantly, inviting your customers into a powerful story so that they know why they need you. And then lastly, we've talked about unreasonable hospitality. Now, next week, we're actually going to start diving into some interviews where I am going to interview different experts in business and leadership and invite them in to share their experience with you so that you can actually glean from them in ways that I have as well. I'm going to share my own personal stories, but I'm going to give you insights and action items so you can actually truly be a badass softie. So thanks for joining me on this first series as we get ready to lean into bringing in some other experts. But I want to close us out with this. May you be the kind of leader who sees every interaction as an opportunity to make someone feel seen. May you offer more than what is expected, choosing generosity over efficiency and delight over duty. May you have the courage to slow down long enough to notice the small things, because the smallest gestures often carry the greatest weight. And may all of this allow you to create spaces where people don't just feel served, but cared for. Spaces that remind them they belong. Because we believe you can be both ambitious and kind, fun and driven, powerful and deeply human. Your leadership can inspire, your success can have soul, and your ambition can make space for everyone. That's why you're a badass softie. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Follow and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. BadassSoftie.com is crafted by Fruitful Design and Strategy.